I stood in the doorway of my childhood bedroom, staring at the single cardboard box my uncle said I could take with me. One box for 18 years of my life. My mom's locket was around my neck. My dad's hoodie was on my back. Everything else that mattered was already gone. He'd sold it, thrown it away, or locked it up where I couldn't reach it. I watched him smile as he told me I had until noon to be out of the house. My house. The house where I took my first steps, where my mom taught me to bake, where my dad and I watched old movies every Friday night. The house my parents died to give me. And the man who was supposed to protect me was throwing me out like trash on my 18th birthday. But he didn't know that at that exact moment there was a lawyer's email sitting in my inbox with the subject line that would change everything. He thought he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. How does someone steal everything from a grieving teenager and sleep at night? If this story already touches your heart, please subscribe and stay with me to hear what happened next. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. You might feel less alone in your own struggles, because I promise you I felt completely alone too. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 18 years old now, but my story really starts when I was 16. I was a junior in high school, running track, working part-time at a bookstore downtown, and spending my weekends with my parents doing completely normal, boring, wonderful things. My dad, Michael Carter, was a civil engineer. He loved terrible dad jokes and classic movies. He'd wake me up on Saturday mornings by blasting old rock music until I came downstairs. My mom, Rachel Carter, was a high school art teacher. She taught me how to sketch, how to see beauty in ordinary things, and how to stand up for what I believed in. She always told me that quiet strength was more powerful than loud anger. I didn't understand what she meant back then. I do now. We lived in the same house my whole life. A 3-bedroom craftsman-style home on Maple Street with a huge oak tree in the front yard. My dad built a swing on that tree when I was 5. My mom planted a garden every spring. It wasn't a mansion, but it was ours. It was home. My parents had worked hard to pay off the mortgage early. My dad always said he wanted to make sure I'd have something stable no matter what happened. They'd been saving for my college fund since I was born. They had life insurance policies. They were responsible, loving, careful people who wanted to give me a good future. I had one uncle on my dad's side. Uncle Rob, Robert Carter. My dad's younger brother. They weren't close. I'd see Uncle Rob maybe once or twice a year at family gatherings, and even then, there was always this tension I couldn't quite name. My dad would get quiet when Uncle Rob talked about his job or his life. My mom would give me a look that said, "Be polite, but don't engage too much." Uncle Rob had been divorced for years. He didn't have kids. He worked in sales, and from what I overheard, he wasn't great with money. He'd ask my dad for loans sometimes. My dad always helped him, but I remember my mom saying once, "Your brother resents you for having what he doesn't." My dad just sighed and said, "He's still my brother." I also had my dad's mom, my grandma Susan, who lived in a retirement community about 3 hours away. She was kind and warm, but her health wasn't great, and she couldn't take care of a teenager full-time. I loved her, but I didn't see her often. My mom's parents had passed away before I was born. So when it came to family, it was really just the 3 of us in that house on Maple Street. And we were happy. I remember being happy. Then everything ended on a Tuesday night in October, 2 years ago. I was at Jade's house working on a group project for history class. My phone rang at 8:30. It was a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a police officer told me there had been an accident. A car accident on the highway. A truck driver had fallen asleep at the wheel and crossed the median. My parents were driving home from a dinner out to celebrate their anniversary. They were hit head-on. The officer said they didn't suffer. He said it was instant. He said I needed to come to the hospital to identify them. I don't remember dropping the phone. I don't remember Jade's mom driving me. I don't remember walking into that hospital. But I remember the smell, antiseptic and something else. I remember seeing my dad's watch on a table in a plastic bag. I remember a social worker with a kind face asking me if I had any other family. That's when everything went numb. The funeral was a blur. I stood between Grandma Susan and Uncle Rob while people I barely knew told me how sorry they were. I wore my mom's denim jacket over a black dress. I held my dad's hoodie in my hands like a lifeline. Jade stood next to me the whole time, not saying anything, just being there. I remember Uncle Rob putting his arm around my shoulders during the service, and something about it felt wrong. Too tight, too possessive. But I was 16 and drowning in grief. I didn't have the words to explain the feeling in my gut. After the funeral, Grandma Susan pulled me aside. Her eyes were red from crying. She told me she wished she could take me in, but her health was declining, and she lived in a one-bedroom apartment in an assisted living facility. She could barely take care of herself. She said she'd try to visit as much as she could. She hugged me so tight I thought I'd break, and she whispered, "Be careful, sweetheart. If anything feels wrong, you call me." I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. That's when Uncle Rob stepped in. He told everyone he'd be my guardian. He said it was what my dad would have wanted. He said family takes care of family. The social worker seemed relieved. I had somewhere to go. I wouldn't be put into the foster system. Uncle Rob had a job, a clean record, and he was my blood relative. It all seemed like the obvious choice. I was too grief-stricken to question it. I just wanted to stay in my house, sleep in my bed, and pretend my parents would walk through the door any second. Uncle Rob said I could stay in the house. He said he'd move in temporarily to take care of me until I turned 18. He said he'd make sure I was okay. I believed him. I had no reason not to. He was my dad's brother. The first week, he was almost nice. He made sure I ate. He drove me to school. He asked if I needed anything. But there was something in the way he walked through the house that made my skin crawl. He'd open my parents' bedroom door and just stand there, looking around like he was appraising everything. He'd pick up my dad's things and turn them over in his hands. He'd sit in my dad's chair at the dinner table. I told myself he was grieving too. I told myself I was being paranoid. I was wrong. 3 weeks after the funeral, Uncle Rob sat me down at the kitchen table. He had a folder in front of him. He looked serious. He told me we needed to talk about the estate. I didn't even really know what that meant. He said my parents' will had been read, and he'd been appointed as executor and my legal guardian. He said the house was going to be signed over to him so he could manage it properly. He said my parents' life insurance and savings would be put into a trust that he'd manage until I turned 18. He said it was all very standard and legal. He slid some papers across the table and pointed to a line where I needed to sign. I was 16. I didn't have a lawyer. I didn't know what I was signing. I trusted him because he was my family, so I signed. I can still see his smile when I put the pen down. It wasn't warm. It was victorious. That's when things started to change. Within a month, Uncle Rob stopped calling it our house and started calling it my house. He told me I was lucky he was letting me stay. He moved into my parents' master bedroom and boxed up all their belongings. When I asked if I could keep some of my mom's jewelry or my dad's books, he said, "We'll see." And then the boxes disappeared. I never saw them again. He sold my mom's car, a silver sedan she'd loved, without even telling me. I came home from school one day and it was just gone. When I asked him about it, he said, It's my car now, and I can do what I want with it. My chest felt tight, but I didn't know how to fight back. He was an adult. He was my guardian. I thought he had the right to make those decisions. I didn't know he was lying to me about everything. By the time I was 17, I wasn't living in my home anymore. I was surviving in it. Uncle Rob treated me like a servant. He'd leave dishes in the sink and tell me to clean them. He'd make messes and expect me to pick them up. When I said I had homework or work at the bookstore, he'd guilt me. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? He'd say. I gave up my life to take care of you. It was a lie. He hadn't given up anything. He'd taken everything. He started bringing people over, friends from work, women he was dating. He'd introduce me as my niece who's staying with me. Not my niece whose house this is. Not the girl I'm supposed to be taking care of. Just some kid he was doing a favor for. I started spending more and more time in my room or at Jade's house. I felt like a ghost in my own life. I tried talking to people about it. I told my guidance counselor, Mr. Harrison, that things felt off at home. He asked if I was being physically hurt. I said no. He said it sounded like normal family friction and that grief was complicated. He meant well, but he didn't understand. I tried calling Grandma Susan, but her health was getting worse and I didn't want to burden her. I tried talking to Jade and she believed me, but what could she do? We were teenagers. I felt trapped. And Uncle Rob knew it. He'd look at me sometimes with this smug expression that said, "What are you going to do about it?" And I didn't have an answer. The money my parents left me was supposed to be mine when I turned 18. Uncle Rob told me the trust was for college, and I'd get access to it after I graduated high school and enrolled somewhere. But he never showed me paperwork. He never let me talk to a lawyer. When I asked questions, he'd get angry. "You don't trust me?" He'd snap. After I put a roof over your head, I started to feel crazy, like maybe I was being ungrateful. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own reality. And Uncle Rob was a master at it. Then came my 18th birthday. March 14th. I woke up that morning with this tiny flicker of hope. I was legally an adult. I could access my inheritance. I could take control of my life. I could get answers. I made myself breakfast and sat at the kitchen table waiting for Uncle Rob to come downstairs. When he finally did, he didn't say happy birthday. He slapped an envelope down in front of me. Inside was a single piece of paper. A typed letter that said I had 30 days to vacate the property. Vacate. Like I was a tenant who hadn't paid rent. I looked up at him and he was smiling. "You're 18 now," he said. "You're an adult. Time to make it on your own." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "This is my house," I whispered. He laughed. Actually laughed. "No, sweetheart. It's mine. Check the county records if you don't believe me. Your parents left it to me. You've been living here as a guest. Now your time is up." I ran to my room and locked the door. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. I wanted to call someone, but who? Grandma Susan was too frail. Jade's family couldn't take me in long term. I felt like I was drowning. Then I remembered Ms. Chen, Margaret Chen. She'd been my parents' estate lawyer. I'd met her once, years ago, when my parents were updating their will. I found her card in an old box of my mom's things I'd hidden in my closet. I called her office, and the receptionist said she was with a client. I left a desperate voicemail. "Ms. Chen, this is Emily Carter." My parents were Rachel and Michael Carter. They died 2 years ago. My uncle says he inherited everything, and he's kicking me out. Please, I don't know what to do. Please call me back. I didn't expect her to call back that same day. But she did. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Her voice was calm but urgent. "Emily, I've been trying to reach you for months. Your uncle blocked my calls and emails. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your uncle did not inherit your parents' estate. He lied to you." I felt the room spin. "What?" I whispered. She said, "Your parents left everything to you. The house, the savings, the life insurance, everything. It was all supposed to go into a managed trust until you turned 18, at which point you'd gain full control. Your uncle was named as temporary guardian, but he was never the beneficiary. He forged documents and bribed a court clerk to get himself named executor. I've been gathering evidence for months. I have the original will. I have proof of what he did. Emily, he committed fraud. And now that you're 18, we can fight back." I couldn't breathe. 2 years. 2 years of being treated like a burden, like a guest, like nothing. 2 years of believing I had no power, no rights, no future. And it was all a lie. He stole my life. He stole my parents' legacy. He stole my home. I felt a rage I'd never felt before, but underneath it was something stronger. Clarity. For the first time in 2 years, I knew exactly what I needed to do. What do I do? I asked Ms. Chen. She said, "First, don't let him know that you know. Second, document everything. Third, pack a bag and get somewhere safe. I'm filing an emergency injunction to freeze all assets and prevent him from selling the house or transferring funds. We're going to take him to court, Emily, and we're going to win." That night, I packed a small bag while Uncle Rob was out. I took my laptop, my parents' photo albums that I'd hidden, my mom's locket, my dad's hoodie, and the few important documents I had. Jade's mom picked me up, and I stayed at their house. Jade held my hand while I cried. Not sad tears. Angry tears. Determined tears. I was done being the victim. I was done being quiet. My mom always said quiet strength was more powerful than loud anger. Now I understood. I didn't need to scream. I just needed to act. The next morning, Ms. Chen filed the injunction. Uncle Rob's bank accounts were frozen. He couldn't sell the house. He couldn't touch a single dollar of my inheritance. When he found out, he called me 27 times. I didn't answer. He left voicemails ranging from fake apologies to threats. "You're making a huge mistake," he hissed in one. "You have no idea what you're doing. I'll bury you in legal fees." But he was panicking. I could hear it in his voice. And I knew why. Ms. Chen had the original will. She had emails between him and the clerk he'd bribed. She had bank records showing he'd been spending my inheritance on himself for 2 years. New car, expensive dinners, gambling debts. He'd blown through almost $40,000 of my money. Money that was supposed to pay for my college. Money my parents died believing would give me a future. Ms. Chen also contacted Grandma Susan, who immediately offered to testify. She told Ms. Chen that Rob had always been jealous of my dad, that he'd burned through his own divorce settlement in a year, that she'd never trusted him with money. She said she'd tried to fight for custody when my parents died, but Rob had told her the will specifically named him as guardian and heir, and she'd been too old and sick to challenge it. She was heartbroken when she learned the truth. She sent me a long letter apologizing for not fighting harder. I wrote back and told her it wasn't her fault. It was his. We also reached out to Mr. Harrison, my guidance counselor. He provided records showing my declining grades and attendance after Uncle Rob took over as guardian. He documented the conversations we'd had where I expressed feeling unsafe and unwelcome at home. It wasn't much, but it painted a picture. A picture of a teenager being emotionally abused and manipulated by the adult who was supposed to protect her. The court date was set for 6 weeks after my birthday. 6 weeks of living at Jade's house, sleeping on an air mattress in her room, and preparing for the fight of my life. Ms. Chen worked pro bono because she said what Uncle Rob did was one of the most egregious cases of guardianship abuse she'd ever seen. She didn't just want to win, she wanted him prosecuted. So did I. During those 6 weeks, Uncle Rob tried everything. He showed up at my school and I had to get a restraining order. He contacted distant relatives, trying to turn them against me, saying I was an ungrateful, lying teenager trying to steal from him. But Ms. Chen sent them copies of the real will and the evidence of fraud. Most of them stopped talking to him after that. He hired a cheap lawyer who clearly knew his case was hopeless. He tried to settle out of court, offering me a fraction of what I was owed if I'd dropped the case. Ms. Chen didn't even let me consider it. "You don't negotiate with thieves," she said. "You hold them accountable." The day of the court hearing, I wore my mom's denim jacket and the silver locket. Jade came with me. So did Grandma Susan, who'd traveled 3 hours just to be there. Mr. Harrison took the day off to testify. We walked into that courtroom, and I saw Uncle Rob sitting at the defendant's table. He looked smaller than I remembered. Less intimidating. Just a pathetic man who'd stolen from a grieving child because he was too weak to build his own life. When he saw me, he tried to give me a pleading look, like he was the victim. I looked right through him. Ms. Chen presented the original will. Clear, notarized, dated. It left everything to me. The house, the savings, the life insurance policies totaling $480,000. Everything. Uncle Rob's lawyer tried to argue that my parents had verbally expressed different wishes. But there was no evidence. Ms. Chen presented the forged documents Uncle Rob had used, complete with an affidavit from a handwriting expert confirming the signatures were fake. She presented bank records showing Uncle Rob had been living off my inheritance, spending money on himself while telling me I had nothing. She presented emails between Uncle Rob and a court clerk named Dennis Howell, who'd accepted bribes to expedite the fake executor appointment. Dennis Howell had already been arrested and was cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for a lighter sentence. He confirmed everything. Then came the testimonies. Grandma Susan spoke about Rob's history of financial irresponsibility and jealousy. She cried when she talked about my dad, about how hard he'd worked to give me a stable future, and how Rob had destroyed that out of greed. Mr. Harrison talked about the change in me after my parents died, how I'd gone from a bright, engaged student to someone who was withdrawn and struggling. He said he'd never seen someone look so lost in their own home. Jade's mom testified that I'd shown up at their door multiple times looking exhausted and defeated, and that I'd told her I felt like a prisoner. Then I testified. I told the court everything. The way Uncle Rob had made me sign papers I didn't understand when I was 16 and drowning in grief. The way he'd sold my mom's car and threw away my dad's belongings. The way he treated me like a servant in my own house. The way he handed me an eviction notice on my 18th birthday like I was nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just told the truth. My mom was right. Quiet strength is powerful. Uncle Rob's lawyer had nothing. He tried to paint me as a rebellious teenager with a grudge. He tried to say Uncle Rob had made some mistakes, but had acted in good faith. The judge shut him down. Judge Patricia Owens had seen enough. She reviewed the evidence, listened to the testimonies, and made her ruling. The forged documents were void. The original will stood. I was the sole heir to my parents' estate. The house was mine. The savings were mine. The life insurance was mine, all of it. $480,000, minus the $40,000 Uncle Rob had already stolen. And then Judge Owens did something I didn't expect. She ordered Uncle Rob to repay every cent he'd taken with interest. And she referred his case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Fraud, forgery, embezzlement from a minor. He was looking at felony charges. Uncle Rob's face went white. His lawyer tried to sputter something about an appeal, but Judge Owens wasn't interested. She looked at Uncle Rob with pure disgust and said, "You were entrusted with the care of a grieving child, and you exploited her for financial gain. You forged legal documents, bribed a public official, and spent money that wasn't yours while telling your niece she had nothing. You are a disgrace to the concept of guardianship, and I hope you face the full consequences of your actions." Then she looked at me. Her expression softened. "Ms. Carter, I'm deeply sorry for what you've endured. You are a remarkably strong young woman. I'm ordering the immediate transfer of all assets to your name. You're free to reclaim your home and your future. I wish you nothing but the best." I couldn't speak. Jade grabbed my hand. Grandma Susan was crying. Ms. Chen squeezed my shoulder. It was over. I'd won. Not because I was louder or meaner or more powerful, but because I told the truth and had people who believed me. Because my parents had been smart and careful and left a paper trail. Because Ms. Chen had integrity and fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. And because I didn't give up, even when I felt like a ghost in my own life. Uncle Rob was escorted out of the courtroom by his lawyer. He didn't look at me. 3 weeks later, he was formally charged with fraud and embezzlement. He tried to plea bargain, but the DA wasn't interested in going easy on someone who'd stolen from an orphan teenager. He ended up pleading guilty to avoid a trial, and was sentenced to 4 years in prison and ordered to pay full restitution. 4 years. It wasn't enough for what he'd done, but it was something. He lost his job. He lost his reputation. And he lost his freedom. The clerk, Dennis Howell, got 2 years. They were both marked as felons for the rest of their lives. Every job application, every background check, every time someone Googled their names, the world would know what they'd done. As for me, I moved back into my house the week after the hearing. Walking through that front door knowing it was truly mine felt surreal. The first thing I did was change all the locks. The second thing I did was clean out every trace of Uncle Rob. I donated his belongings to charity. I repainted my parents' bedroom. I brought back the boxes of my dad's things and my mom's belongings that I'd managed to track down in a storage unit Uncle Rob had rented. Not everything survived, but I got back my mom's sketchbooks, my dad's favorite novels, and photo albums that spanned my entire childhood. I put my mom's paintings back on the walls. I sat in my dad's chair and watched an old movie, just like we used to. I cried, but they were different tears. Healing tears. The inheritance money went into a managed account with Ms. Chen overseeing it until I felt ready to take full control. I used some of it to pay Jade's family back for letting me stay with them, even though they refused at first. I donated $10,000 to a nonprofit that helps teenagers in guardianship situations navigate the legal system. I set up a college fund for myself, just like my parents had planned. I got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship, and I'll be majoring in social work. I want to help kids like me. Kids who are told they're powerless. Kids who are gaslit and manipulated by the adults who are supposed to protect them. I want to be the person who believes them and fights for them, the way Ms. Chen fought for me. Grandma Susan and I are closer now than we've ever been. She moved into an assisted living facility closer to me, and I visit her every weekend. We talk about my dad, about my mom, about the future. She tells me how proud my parents would be. I think she's right. I hope she's right. Jade and I are still best friends. She's applying to the same university, and we're planning to be roommates. She never once doubted me, even when I doubted myself. That kind of loyalty is rare, and I'll never take it for granted. I still have hard days. I still miss my parents with an ache that doesn't go away. I still have nightmares about Uncle Rob standing in my doorway telling me to get out. I still struggle with trusting people, with letting my guard down. Trauma doesn't just disappear because you won a legal battle. But I'm healing. I'm building a life that my parents would be proud of. I'm using my voice. I'm helping others. And I'm never, ever letting anyone make me feel powerless again. Looking back now, I realize that Uncle Rob didn't just steal money from me. He stole 2 years of my adolescence. He stole my sense of safety. He stole the time I should have spent grieving my parents in peace. But he didn't steal my future. He tried, but he failed. Because I was stronger than he thought. Because there were people who cared enough to fight for me. And because the truth, no matter how buried, always finds a way to the surface. My mom used to say that quiet strength is more powerful than loud anger. She was right. I didn't scream or rage or lash out. I gathered evidence. I found allies. I told my story, and I won. Not just in court, but in life. I reclaimed my home, my inheritance, and my future. And Uncle Rob lost everything. His freedom, his reputation, his chance to ever hurt anyone like me again. That's not revenge. That's justice. And justice, as it turns out, is the sweetest victory of all. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more stories of strength and vindication. Have you ever experienced a family betrayal or had to fight to be believed? Have you ever felt completely powerless against an adult who was supposed to protect you? Share your thoughts in the comments. You're not alone. I promise, one more thing. If you're a teenager in a situation where you feel unsafe, unheard, or exploited by a guardian, please reach out for help. Tell a teacher. Tell a counselor. Tell a trusted adult. Document everything. Save emails, texts, and any paperwork. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And there are people who will fight for you, even when it feels like no one is listening. I'm living proof that you can survive this and come out stronger on the other side. Have you ever had to choose between staying silent and risking everything to tell the truth? What would you have done in my situation? The stories shared on this channel are entirely fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. We believe in supporting young people and treating all family members with love and respect. These stories are meant to inspire reflection on family relationships and the importance of compassion and truth. Any resemblance to real people, events, or families is purely coincidental and unintentional. These narratives carry no specific cultural, political, or religious implications.